Dr. Zextheri's forearms trembled as he backed away from the containment unit, his chitinous exoskeleton clicking nervously against the medical bay's walls. The other members of the Galactic Veterinary Council, a Volani with their characteristic blue-scaled hide and a towering Kethmore whose crystalline body structure refracted the overhead lights, stood equally distant from the transparent aluminum cage. Absolutely not, Zextheri chittered, his translator converting his species' rapid clicks into standard galactic. I will not approach that thing. Inside the containment unit, a creature roughly the size of a large Terran dog lay on its side, breathing shallowly. Its midnight black fur was matted with dried blood, and a deep gash ran along its flank where a plasma blast had grazed it. But what terrified the assembled alien veterinarians wasn't its injuries. It was everything else. The creature's head was perfectly designed for killing. An elongated snout filled with razor-sharp teeth, powerful jaw muscles that could snap bone, and worst of all, those eyes. Even in its wounded state, those predatory amber eyes tracked every movement in the room with the calculating intelligence of a born hunter. The preliminary scans show it's from Kepler 442b, reported Dr. Yilnara, the Volani. Her voice carried the melodic tones of her people, but even that couldn't mask her fear. It's classified as an apex predator on a death world. Look at these readings: bone density 3 times standard, reaction time in the millisecond range, and those claws. She gestured at the creature's paws with one of her 4-fingered hands. Even retracted, the claws were visible as dark points beneath the fur. It's called a Shadowmaw, added Kethmore Vryn, his crystalline voice resonating through his body. The databanks say they hunt in packs, can track prey across continents, and have never been successfully domesticated by any sapient species. Captain Rexstar, the station commander, shifted his weight nervously. His reptilian features were drawn with concern as he addressed the veterinary team. The creature was found in the wreckage of a smuggler's ship. We believe it was being transported illegally when the ship was attacked by pirates. Our security teams had to use stun weapons just to get it into containment. Then let it die, Zextheri said bluntly. Some creatures are too dangerous to save. This thing could kill half the station if it escapes. We can't just... Captain Rexstar began. Yes, we can, Dr. Yilnara interrupted. I've treated Zephyrian sandvipers and Altarian bloodhawks, but this is beyond dangerous. Look at the muscle structure alone. It could tear through our medical restraints like they were gossamer. The Shadowmaw's ears twitched at the sound of their voices, and its eyes opened fully. 3 sets of alien veterinarians immediately took another step back. Perhaps we should contact the humans, Kethmore Vryn suggested quietly. They have that veterinarian on deck 15, the one who's been treating the difficult cases. Zextheri's mandibles clicked in what his species considered a laugh. Dr. Marcus Chen, the human? He's barely been here 6 months. What could he possibly know about apex predators that we don't? He did successfully treat that Vorthan battle beast last month, Captain Rexstar pointed out. And the Crimson Stalker from the Antares system. Those were flukes, Dr. Yilnara protested. This is different. This creature isn't just dangerous. It's death incarnate. Look at those proportions, that skeletal structure. Evolution designed this thing to be a perfect killing machine. As if responding to her words, the Shadowmaw attempted to lift its head, letting out a low, rumbling sound that vibrated through the containment unit. The sound was somewhere between a growl and a whimper, but to the alien ears it sounded like pure menace. That's it, Zextheri declared, already moving toward the exit. I'm not staying in the same room as that monster. If the humans want to get themselves killed trying to help it, that's their choice. But surely we have an obligation, Captain Rexstar started. Our obligation is to preserve life, not throw it away needlessly. Dr. Yilnara cut him off. That creature could break free at any moment. We've done our scans, we've assessed the situation. Our professional opinion is that it's too dangerous to treat. The 3 veterinarians filed out of the medical bay, leaving Captain Rexstar alone with the wounded Shadowmaw. He stared at the creature for a long moment, noting how its breathing had become more labored, how its eyes were starting to lose their fierce intensity. With a heavy sigh, he activated his communicator. Dr. Chen, please report to Medical Bay 7. We have a situation that requires your expertise. The response came back immediately in the clipped, confident tone that had become familiar around the station. On my way, Captain. What species am I dealing with? A Shadowmaw. From Kepler, 442b. There was a pause. Then, interesting. I'll be right there. Captain Rexstar shook his head. Either the human didn't understand the danger or he simply didn't care. In Rexstar's experience with humans over the past few months, it could be either or both. Dr. Marcus Chen arrived at Medical Bay 7 exactly 8 minutes after the captain's call, carrying a worn leather veterinary bag that looked positively archaic compared to the sleek medical equipment of the Galactic Veterinary Council. He was a tall, lean man in his early 30s, with short black hair and the kind of steady hands that came from years of working with frightened, dangerous animals. So, he said, setting his bag down and approaching the containment unit without hesitation. This is the famous Shadowmaw that has everyone in a panic. Captain Rexstar watched nervously as the human stopped just a meter from the transparent aluminum barrier. Dr. Chen, perhaps you should keep your distance. The other veterinarians deemed it too dangerous to treat. Marcus glanced back with a slight smile. Captain, on Earth, I spent 3 years working with African wild dogs, 2 years with wolves, and I once performed surgery on a grizzly bear that weighed 400 kilograms. This little guy doesn't scare me. Little guy. Rexstar's voice climbed an octave. Doctor, that creature could tear you apart. Could it? Marcus turned back to study the Shadowmaw more carefully. The creature had managed to lift its head and was watching him intently, but there was something in those amber eyes that the aliens had missed, something Marcus recognized immediately. What do you see when you look at this animal, Captain? Rexstar shifted uncomfortably. I see a perfect killing machine, an apex predator designed by evolution to hunt and destroy. Marcus nodded slowly, never taking his eyes off the Shadowmaw. You know what I see? A scared, hurt animal that's probably never been away from its pack before. Look at the body language, Captain. The ears are back, but not in aggression, in submission. The tail is tucked. Those aren't the behaviors of a creature preparing to attack. That's a frightened animal trying to make itself as small as possible. The human veterinarian activated the containment unit scanner, studying the readouts with professional interest. Plasma burn along the right flank, some internal trauma, probably dehydration and stress. Nothing life-threatening if treated properly. The other doctors said it was too dangerous, Rexstar repeated weakly. The other doctors see apex predator and immediately think unstoppable killing machine, Marcus replied, pulling on a pair of exam gloves. But you know what apex predators actually are, Captain? They're specialists. They're perfectly adapted to their environment and their prey. Take them out of that environment, separate them from their pack, wound them, and suddenly they're not apex predators anymore. They're just scared animals. Marcus began programming the medical base systems, his fingers dancing over the holographic controls with surprising familiarity. Computer, prepare a mild sedative cocktail. Something appropriate for a canine-type predator weighing approximately 45 kilograms. Doctor, Rexstar said urgently, the containment unit is designed to hold creatures 3 times that size. Surely you're not planning to open it? Of course I am. Marcus looked back at the captain with the expression of someone explaining something obvious to a child. I can't treat him through a barrier, can I? Him? Oh yes, definitely male. You can tell by the skull structure and the way he's holding himself. Marcus finished his preparations and turned to face the containment unit. Computer, reduce barrier to half transparency and open the front panel. Warning. The computer's voice announced, creature classified as extremely dangerous. Are you certain you wish to proceed? Positive. Override any safety protocols that might interfere with medical treatment. Captain Rexstar backed toward the exit. Dr. Chen, I really think. Captain, with respect, please either stay quiet or leave. Animals can sense fear, and right now you're broadcasting terror at a frequency that's probably making him more nervous. The containment barrier shimmered and disappeared. The Shadowmaw's ears perked up slightly, and he raised his head a few centimeters, but made no aggressive moves. If anything, he seemed confused by the sudden change. Marcus slowly extended his hand toward the opening, palm up, moving with the deliberate slowness of someone who had done this thousands of times before. Easy, boy. Easy. I know you're scared, but I'm here to help. The Shadowmaw's nostrils flared as he caught the human scent. His ears twitched forward slightly, the first sign of curiosity rather than fear that anyone had seen from the creature. That's it, Marcus murmured, taking a step closer. You can smell that I'm not afraid, can't you? You know I'm not going to hurt you. Rexstar watched in amazement as the human veterinarian slowly reached into the containment unit and gently touched the Shadowmaw's uninjured shoulder. The creature flinched slightly but didn't pull away. Good boy. Very good boy. Marcus's voice took on the soothing tone that every veterinarian learned early in their training. Let's take a look at that wound, shall we? As the human began his examination, Rexstar realized something that made his scaled skin crawl. Dr. Chen wasn't just unafraid of the apex predator. He was treating it exactly like he would treat any frightened, wounded animal. And somehow, impossibly, it was working. The wound is deeper than the scans indicated, Marcus said, gently probing the plasma burn along the Shadowmaw's flank. The creature tensed but didn't snap or try to escape. Computer, I need a surgical suite prepared. Standard antiseptic field, but keep the lighting low. Predators from high-gravity worlds often have sensitive eyes. Captain Rexstar had remained in the medical bay, though he'd positioned himself near the emergency alarm. Doctor, shouldn't you sedate him first? Eventually, but not yet. Marcus continued his examination with practiced efficiency. Sedation is risky when you don't know the exact physiology, and besides, he's being cooperative. Aren't you, boy? The Shadowmaw's amber eyes tracked Marcus's movements, but there was no aggression in them now, only a wary intelligence that seemed almost grateful. I don't understand, Rexstar muttered. The preliminary report said these creatures were impossibly aggressive, that they attacked anything that moved. Marcus glanced up from his work. Captain, where did those reports come from? Various expedition teams that encountered them on Kepler 442b. All confirmed the creature's hostile nature. And what were these expedition teams doing on Kepler 442b? Rexstar paused, accessing his memory files. Mining operations, mostly. Some geological surveys, a few attempts at establishing research stations. Ah, Marcus nodded knowingly. So humans, and I assume other sapient species, showed up on their world, started digging holes, building structures, making noise, and disrupting the ecosystem. And when the local apex predators tried to defend their territory, they were labeled as impossibly aggressive. The human veterinarian's hands never stopped moving as he spoke, cleaning the wound with gentle, efficient motions. The Shadowmaw had relaxed considerably under his touch, even closing his eyes occasionally. On Earth, we had similar situations, Marcus continued. Wolves attacking settlements, bears becoming problem animals, big cats taking livestock. The solution was usually to kill them or relocate them. It took us centuries to realize that we were the ones invading their territory, not the other way around. Computer, Marcus called out, initiate surgical suite sterilization sequence, and prepare a mild anesthetic, something that will keep him calm without completely knocking him out. Preparing surgical environment, the computer responded. Estimated time to completion, 12 minutes. Marcus used the time to continue his examination, checking the Shadowmaw's reflexes, muscle tone, and general condition. Definitely been separated from his pack for a while, he murmured. Probably several days, judging by the stress indicators. These creatures are highly social. Being alone is almost as traumatic as being wounded. How can you tell? Rexstar asked, despite himself becoming fascinated by the human's methodology. Body language, mostly. See how he keeps looking toward the door? He's listening for other pack members. And the way he's positioned himself, he's trying to watch all the entrances at once. Classic behavior for a social predator that's been separated from his support structure. The medical bay's main door slid open, and Dr. Zextheri entered hesitantly, followed by Dr. Yilnara and Kethmore Vryn. All three alien veterinarians stopped dead when they saw Marcus sitting beside the open containment unit, one hand resting calmly on the Shadowmaw's uninjured side. "By the void," Zextheri chittered. "It's going to kill him." "No," Marcus said without looking up. "He's not. In fact, he's been remarkably patient considering that 3 different species have been staring at him like he's a monster for the past 2 hours." Dr. Yilnara's scaled hide flushed a deeper blue with anxiety. "Dr. Chen, you don't understand the danger you're in. These creatures are apex predators." "Yes, I heard." Marcus finally looked up at his colleagues. "You know, it's interesting. In all your reports about how dangerous this species is, did any of you actually try communicating with one?" "Communicating?" Kethmore Vryn's crystalline structure flickered with confusion. "It's a non-sapient predator." "Non-sapient doesn't mean non-intelligent," Marcus replied. "Watch this." The human veterinarian slowly stood up, making sure his movements were calm and deliberate. The Shadowmaw's eyes followed him, but the creature didn't tense or show any signs of alarm. "Easy boy," Marcus said softly. "I need to get some supplies. I'll be right back." He walked to his medical bag, deliberately turning his back on the Shadowmaw. The alien veterinarians gasped collectively, expecting the creature to leap up and attack the moment the human wasn't watching. Instead, the Shadowmaw simply lay still, occasionally turning his head to track Marcus's movement, but showing no aggressive behavior whatsoever. "Impossible," Dr. Yilnara whispered. Marcus returned with a small device, a sonic healing accelerator that would help the wound close more quickly. "You see? He understands that I'm trying to help him. He's making a conscious choice to trust me." "But the reports," Zextheri began. "The reports are from people who showed up on his world with weapons and mining equipment." Marcus cut him off. "How would you react if aliens landed on your homeworld and started tearing up the landscape?" The surgical suite's preparation completed with a soft chime. Marcus gently scratched behind the Shadowmaw's ears, a gesture that made the creature's tail twitch slightly, almost like a dog wagging. "All right, boy. Time for the real work. This might be a little uncomfortable, but I promise you'll feel better afterward." As Marcus began to guide the Shadowmaw toward the surgical suite, Captain Rex Dar realized something that would change his understanding of both apex predators and humans forever. Dr. Chen wasn't just treating a dangerous animal. He was helping a patient who happened to be dangerous, and somehow that made all the difference. The surgery took 3 hours. Marcus worked with the focused precision of a master craftsman, repairing damaged tissue, cleaning out foreign debris from the plasma burn, and ensuring that no infection would set in. The Shadowmaw remained conscious but calm throughout the procedure, occasionally lifting his head to watch what the human was doing but never interfering. The 3 alien veterinarians observed from behind a protective barrier, their professional curiosity gradually overcoming their fear. "The muscle structure is fascinating," Dr. Yilnara admitted, studying the surgical display. "Look at the fiber density in the hindquarters. No wonder these creatures are such effective hunters." "The bone density is remarkable too," added Kethmore Vryn. "It's almost like natural armor plating." Dr. Zextheri remained skeptical. "Physical adaptations for killing, just as I suspected." Marcus paused in his work, glancing back at his colleagues. "Actually, those same adaptations make them incredibly durable. High bone density means they can survive falls that would kill most creatures their size. Dense muscle fiber means they can work for hours without fatigue, useful for long migrations or extended hunts to feed a large pack." "You're anthropomorphizing," Zextheri protested, "attributing complex social behaviors to a simple predator." "Am I?" Marcus resumed his work, his voice taking on the patient tone of a teacher. "Computer, display the preliminary brain scans of our patient here." A holographic image appeared above the surgical table, showing the Shadowmaw's neural structure in 3-dimensional detail. "Look at the frontal cortex development," Marcus continued. "That's not the brain of a simple predator. That's the brain of a creature capable of complex problem-solving, long-term planning, and sophisticated social interaction." Dr. Yilnara studied the display with growing amazement. The neural pathway density is higher than some sapient species I've worked with. Exactly. These creatures aren't just hunters, they're strategists. They probably have complex pack hierarchies, detailed territorial arrangements, maybe even rudimentary language. Marcus finished cleaning the wound and began the delicate process of tissue regeneration. The Shadowmaw watched intently, his intelligent eyes following every movement of the human's hands. You see how he's watching what I'm doing? Marcus noted. He's not just enduring this, he's learning from it. He understands that this is helping him heal. That's impossible, Zextheri chittered. Non-sapient creatures can't understand medical procedures. As if in response to the alien skepticism, the Shadowmaw turned his head to look directly at Dr. Zextheri. For a moment, those amber eyes seemed to hold a distinctly unimpressed expression. Did he just? Zextheri's mandibles clicked nervously. Oh yes, Marcus chuckled. He understood exactly what you said. These creatures might not have developed technology or spaceflight, but they're far from unintelligent. Captain Rexstar, who had been quietly observing the entire procedure, finally spoke up. Dr. Chen, if these creatures are as intelligent as you suggest, what does that mean for our operations on Kepler 442b? Marcus paused in his work, considering the question carefully. Well, Captain, it means we might want to reconsider our approach. Instead of treating them as dangerous animals to be avoided or eliminated, maybe we should be treating them as the indigenous intelligent life of their world. The implications of that statement hung in the air like a plasma charge. If the Shadowmaws were truly intelligent, then the mining operations, the territorial disputes, the classification of them as pests, all of it would need to be reevaluated. The Galactic Council won't like that, Rexstar said quietly. The Galactic Council doesn't have to like it, Marcus replied, beginning the final phase of the surgery. They just have to acknowledge the evidence. And the evidence is right here. As if sensing that the conversation was about him, the Shadowmaw lifted his head and made a soft sound. Not quite a whine, not quite a growl, but something that sounded almost conversational. Marcus immediately responded with a gentle, I know, boy. Almost done. Just a little longer. The alien veterinarians watched in fascination as the human and the apex predator seemed to maintain a dialogue of sorts. Marcus speaking in soothing tones, the Shadowmaw responding with various subtle sounds and body language cues. It's like they're talking, Dr. Yilnara whispered. They are talking, Marcus confirmed. It's not complex, but it's definitely communication. He's telling me when something hurts, when he's comfortable, when he's anxious. I'm reassuring him, explaining what I'm doing, letting him know he's safe. But how do you know what his sounds mean? Asked Kethmore Vryn. Marcus shrugged as he applied the final tissue regeneration field. Same way you learn any language, you listen, you observe, you make connections. Body language is universal among social species, and vocalizations usually follow predictable patterns. The surgery was complete. Marcus stepped back, removing his gloves and washing his hands while the medical equipment automatically cleaned and sterilized itself. The Shadowmaw immediately tried to get up, but Marcus gently pressed him back down. Not yet, boy. Give the healing accelerator time to work. The creature settled back down with what could only be described as a resigned sigh. Incredible, breathed Dr. Yilnara. He actually listened to you. Of course he did, Marcus said, as if it were the most natural thing in the galaxy. He trusts me now. We've established a relationship. Dr. Zextheri approached the surgical table cautiously, his earlier terror replaced by scientific curiosity. Dr. Chen, would you mind if I attempted to communicate with him as well? Marcus smiled. I think he'd like that. Just remember, approach slowly, keep your hands visible, and don't make any sudden movements. He's been through a trauma, so he's going to be extra cautious around strangers. As the senior alien veterinarian began his first tentative attempts to interact with the Shadowmaw, Marcus realized that they had accomplished something far more significant than simply treating a wounded animal. They had built the first bridge between two intelligent species. 2 days later, the Shadowmaw, whom Marcus had taken to calling Ranger, due to his apparent role as a scout for his pack, was fully healed and moving around the medical bay with renewed energy. But instead of the desperate, caged behavior everyone had expected, he seemed content to remain near Marcus, following the human veterinarian around like a large, dangerous shadow. The remarkable thing, Dr. Yilnara reported to the assembled senior staff, is how quickly he's adapted to the shipboard environment. He's learned to operate the door controls, he understands the feeding schedule, and he's even figured out how to adjust the lighting in his quarters. Captain Rexstar studied the reports with growing amazement. These intelligence assessments, they're off the charts. Dr. Chen, are you certain he's not sapient? Marcus considered the question carefully. Define sapient, Captain. If you mean capable of abstract thought, problem-solving, and complex communication, then yes, absolutely. If you mean capable of developing advanced technology and space travel, then probably not, but that might be more about environmental factors than raw intelligence. What do you mean? Asked Commander Veltar, the station's xenobiologist. Think about it, Marcus explained, gently scratching behind Ranger's ears as the Shadowmaw sat beside his chair. Humans developed technology because we needed it. We were physically weak compared to most predators on our world, so we developed tools. We couldn't survive extreme weather, so we developed shelter and clothing. He gestured to Ranger. These creatures are perfectly adapted to their environment. They're fast enough to catch anything they need to hunt, strong enough to defend themselves from any threat, intelligent enough to coordinate complex pack strategies. Why would they need technology? Dr. Zextheri, who had become increasingly fascinated by Ranger's abilities, looked up from his data pad. But surely the development of technology is a sign of superior intelligence? Is it? Marcus challenged. Or is it just a sign of necessity? Ranger here can navigate by scent across hundreds of kilometers, can communicate with his pack across vast distances using subsonic calls, and can coordinate hunting strategies that would impress a military tactician. Just because he doesn't use tools doesn't mean he's not intelligent. As if to prove the point, Ranger stood up and walked over to the room's environmental controls. Using his paws with surprising dexterity, he adjusted the temperature down several degrees, then returned to his spot beside Marcus. He prefers it cooler, Marcus explained to the astonished observers. Kepler 442b has a lower average temperature than this station. He figured out how to adjust it himself after watching me do it once. Once? Commander Veltar's voice cracked slightly. These creatures have eidetic memory for anything related to survival or comfort, Marcus confirmed. Show them something once, and they'll remember it perfectly. It's another adaptation that makes them incredibly effective in their natural environment. Captain Rexstar activated his communicator. Dr. Chen, I've been in contact with the Galactic Council's Xenobiological Division. They want to send a team to meet with Ranger formally. I don't think that's a good idea, Marcus said immediately. He's comfortable here because it's a controlled environment with people he's learned to trust. A bunch of strangers showing up with scanning equipment and recording devices would probably send him right back into defensive mode. But surely scientific study is important, protested Dr. Yilnara. Of course it is, but it needs to be done right. Marcus stood up and Ranger immediately rose as well, positioning himself slightly behind and to the right of the human, a protective stance that didn't go unnoticed by anyone in the room. We need to establish proper first contact protocols, Marcus continued. This isn't just about studying an interesting animal anymore. If these creatures are as intelligent as I believe they are, then we're talking about first contact with a non-technological but sapient species. The implications hit everyone at once. First contact protocols were serious business, involving diplomatic corps, xenobiological specialists, and usually years of careful preparation. Dr. Chen, Captain Rexstar said slowly, what exactly are you proposing? I'm proposing we do this right. We return Ranger to his world, with his permission and cooperation. We establish a research station, but we do it as guests, not as colonizers. We learn their language, their customs, their social structures. And most importantly, we treat them as equals, not as subjects for study. The mining operations, Commander Veltar began. "We'll have to be suspended until we can establish proper agreements with the indigenous population," Marcus finished firmly. "Just like we would with any other intelligent species." Ranger, sensing the tension in the room, moved closer to Marcus and made a soft, questioning sound. "It's okay, boy," Marcus said gently. "We're just discussing how to help your people and my people get along better." Dr. Zextheri looked up from his data pad with an expression of wonder. "Dr. Chen, I've been analyzing his vocal patterns. I think he understood what you just said. Not just the emotional content, but the actual meaning." Marcus nodded. "I think so too. He's been picking up more standard galactic every day. Another sign of that adaptive intelligence." Captain Rexstar stood up, his decision made. "Very well. Dr. Chen, I'm putting you in charge of developing first contact protocols for the Shadowmaw species. Dr. Yilnara, Dr. Zextheri, Kethmore Vrin, you'll be his team. Commander Veltar, please prepare a full report for the Galactic Council explaining why we're reclassifying the Shadowmaws as a sapient species." "And the mining operations?" Veltar asked. "Suspended pending the establishment of proper diplomatic relations." Rexstar looked down at Ranger, who was watching the proceedings with obvious intelligence. "It seems we owe this species, and this individual, a significant apology." Ranger tilted his head slightly, then made a sound that was remarkably similar to what humans might recognize as a chuckle. "I don't think he holds grudges," Marcus said with a smile. "But I think he's looking forward to going home and telling his pack that not all aliens are hostile invaders." As the meeting broke up and the various officers and scientists dispersed to begin their new assignments, Marcus remained behind with Ranger. The Shadowmaw looked up at his human friend and made a complex series of sounds. Not quite words, but clearly meaningful communication. "I know," Marcus replied. "It's going to be interesting, isn't it? Your people and mine, learning to understand each other, building something new together." Ranger's tail twitched in what Marcus had learned was the Shadowmaw equivalent of agreement. Outside the medical bay's viewport, the stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, indifferent to the small but significant bridge that had just been built between two intelligent species. It wasn't the first time that fear and misunderstanding had nearly prevented such a connection, and it wouldn't be the last. But thanks to one human veterinarian who saw a scared, hurt animal where others saw only a monster, the galaxy had become a little bit larger, a little bit more connected, and a lot more interesting. As Marcus often said, it's amazing what you can accomplish when you realize that being different doesn't mean being dangerous. Even if you happen to be an apex predator.